This video is brought to you powered by my Patreon backers across Patreon and YouTube's little community bit over here. If you'd like to jump aboard what has playfully been described as a nihilistic cult in the worship of snarkasm, do click the link to either the Patreon or the community, which is in the description below. And while we're here, thank you so much to Kerry D, Sarah S, T-Rex, Chris D, Alex S, David V, Pingu, Stuart, Kai, Jeff M, Bo, Mojo Sabian, and then Peter Del Monte, Aaron S, Ned B, Simon F, Martin M, Rachel H, MJ Nichols, Paul W, Ian B, Encore une fois, my namesake over here, Aid, Cycletricity, Gareth J, and Tracy W. Tracy Dubs, what? Yo, 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 ladies and gentlemen, welcome. How you doing? Sorry for the slightly late start. It's all a little bit haphazard here. How are you guys? Happy Friday. What's going on? What's happening? What's the happy haps? Welcome to another episode of Aid Thompson and Other Disappointments. I'm your host, Aid Thompson. This is your twice, sometimes thrice weekly cannonball dive bomb into the worlds of politics, dystopia, news, current affairs, and all things awful. Welcome, what's up to people in the chat. Hey to Waynemaker, me old buddy, me old mucker Wayne. Bowler Hatman's in the house. Hey, man. I've got a few Patreons in as well. Diz, how you doing? It was nice to meet you last week. Finally. No sign of Dickie Bow in this evening. My friend Bowman. I've just realised I'm not recording yet. I'll just start the recording now, shall I? It might mean that the upload to Patreon is a little bit haphazard later. Oops. What's up to Alex French and Billy Kershaw, and who else have we got? We've got Jay. We got a bunch of you in this evening. I hope you're doing well. Hope everyone's had a good week. How have we enjoyed Labour's first week in power, guys? Have we been enjoying Labour's first week in government for 14 years? Has it been everything that you wished that it could be, everything that you dreamed that it would be? Labour's first week in power. For me, it's been a bit of a mixed one, maybe? I don't know. You know, I felt like I'd be bouncing off the walls the whole time. You know, and I am grateful. I absolutely am grateful that they are in power, that we got the last lot out. Obviously, that goes without saying, I hope. But just this week has been a bit of a mixed one for me in the news in terms of good and bad news. You know, because I feel like on the one hand we've had the hope and the optimism, haven't we, of this new Labour government and all of the promise that brings with it. We've got Ed Miliband cancelling the onshore wind farm ban, you know, straight off the bat, straight out the gate. Lots of talk of Ed withdrawing North Sea extraction licenses for oil and gas, or Ed Drilliband, as one hilarious commenter put it. If that was you, if you're watching or listening to this, you win the internet. Mystery commenter on Danny Price's Instagram. We've had commitments toward broader environmental concerns. We've got the cancellation of the Rwanda policy, guys. It's all feeling good, isn't it? It's all feeling good and positive and optimistic. It's teddy bears and unicorns and rainbows and blowjobs all around this week with this new Labour government. But on the other hand, we've still got the reverberations and ripple effects of the now dead and gone and hopefully rotting Tory administrations. You know, we've got the good, the optimism over here, and then we've got the chickens coming home to roost, it feels like, over this side. We've got their chaos and their mayhem, or Kayhem, that they've left us with. By way of what? You know, the impending implosion of Thames Water. I don't know if you've read about that this week. I mean, I found myself, like, I checked my water bill for the first time in maybe 5 years. I never open it. I'm absolutely destined to be that guy who you come to his flat to check on him and he's dead in the front room and there's post there that hasn't been opened in like 5 years. That is me. So I opened my water bill for the first time in maybe 5 years just to check who I'm with, who I'm registered with. And I noticed it's not Thames Water. You know, here I am in Hampshire. I sort of assumed that it would be. And it said South East Water. And I was like, oh, good. That's some good news. I like that. I mean, I feel sorry for everyone else in Thames Waterland, but phew, you know? At least my water company isn't going to implode and leave me saddled with an apportioned amount of their corporate debt and their corruption. At least that's not me. At least I've escaped it. I've shirked this one instance of political tomfuckery. And then imagine my glee, dear listeners. Imagine my shock and horror, really, is what it was, when I read the news the following day and it says, South East Water go begging to investors for extra funds to avoid collapse. I'm like, is there one water company? Or even just broaden it out, is there one infrastructure entity or utility in this country that isn't facing imminent implosion and collapse? Just once. I'd like to read a news story where it's like, and Southern Electric are doing really well, thank you very much, you know? So, yeah, I was really happy about that, as you can imagine. We're very much in a sort of an era now, a situation, aren't we, in this country where it's like, you know, welcome to the formerly Great Britain, guys, where we do have, what have we got? We've got taps, we've got a water supply that has scurvy and feces in it. Like, if we sold mineral water in the UK, maybe we do, and I just don't know about it because I never buy mineral water because I'm not a fucking idiot, you know? Oh, that'll be £3, please. Are you out of your mind? £3 for some water. But if we did sell mineral water in the UK, if there was anyone foolish enough to buy our mineral water, it would be called, like, you know, like, it would just be called oh shit. That's what it would be called. It's just feces, sewage, shit water. Shit water worse than Woodstock. If you happen to have seen that Netflix documentary, thought that's what sent them all crazy. You know, there's a lot of talk about toxic masculinity and Limp Bizkit revving the crowd up a little bit. But no, I actually have a different theory. I think if you price gouge people, you know, $20 for a bottle of shit water, I think it sends them a bit loopy. But yeah, now we're very much in a situation in the UK, in the formerly Great Britain, where our water companies are on the verge of collapse. And if they don't collapse, we're going to get saddled with all of the debt, which means realistically, we could end up getting charged, what, like £300 a month? For shit water. Oh yeah, I'll have a £300 a month account for some shit water. Yeah, could I get a polio smoothie, please? Thank you. So yeah, it's good news and it's bad news, dear listeners, dearer viewers. You know, and I don't want you to get it twisted. I'm happy that we are expiring the onshore wind farm ban. I think that's a good move for Labour, and I think Labour have had a good First week in government. But there is a little part of me that's like, can we start at clean water? Can we just... Are we a third world country now? Are we? Is that what's happening here? Can we start at water out of a tap that isn't £500 a month and doesn't have feces in it? Can we just start there and work our way up to the onshore wind farms? Guys, in the new Labour government. But it's not all been bad news, you know, obviously. It's been good and it's been bad. It's been a good week for the England football team. They won their match the other night in the last, the 90th minute? And this gave the Sun, you know, I don't obviously buy the Sun. Who does? But this gave the Sun a very rare opportunity to depart from their usual narrative of people sitting at home with their feet up, these work-shy, work-from-home, lazy Gen X, Gen Z. They're not doing anything for the productivity crisis, are they? These lazy, work-from-home, work-shy scroungers. Gave the Sun a rare opportunity to depart from that narrative that they so often weave, and instead, off the back of the England team winning a football game, now, I don't know if you saw this today, front page of the Sun, they're like, we should have a bank holiday. Who's up for a day off? So that was nice. That was refreshing. Good old Murdoch. Consistent, if not anything else. What else has been in the news? About the news. Has it been a good or a bad week for the media, do we think? People in the live chat. Has the media coverage of late reinstalled or instilled some confidence that maybe, like, either it didn't play as much of a role in the general election campaign and result, so now you're like, oh, well, it doesn't really matter so much, like newspapers are dead, or is it, you know, are you just as worried as you ever were about the impact of the UK media on the journo-political landscape? Because a study today revealed that media coverage throughout the general election was indeed heavily skewed towards Nigel Farage and Reform. That will surprise absolutely nobody. Nobody's going to be... I don't even know why they printed it, like, this study. It's like, I bet everyone that read that was like, well, yeah, I mean, it's not... How is that news, you know? That's the status quo. We understand we're trying to change that, actually. I mean, I suppose a lot of, you know, Faragean defenders or media realists would probably clap back to that cynicism, that snarkiness. They would probably say, well, yeah, I mean, look, Nigel Farage is a controversial figure. He's, you know, a lot of people have said he's racist. I've got to be really careful now. Can't be getting sued. You know, he's a controversial figure. The guy is box office. If we talk about Farage, people listen. If we talk about Reform, people tune in. People download the podcast. They want to know what he said. Nigel Farage is box office, Aid. To which the only sane reply is, yeah, but so was Waterworld. And it was shit. And so is Farage. Do you know what? Flies flock to shit, right? Everyone slows down for the car crash. It is not an excuse to then go out and promote it. It's just not. What else has been happening in the media landscape the last few days? Put my thinking cap on. There were some callers into LBC earlier on today. I don't know if any of you listen to LBC. But they were talking about the prisons crisis. And about prisoners, potentially breaking out, breaking free. Policemen maybe being over capacity, like over maxed out. Don't have the resources to chase after everyone. I was like, could you chase after someone? Could you just try to catch some criminals, please? But yeah, there were some callers earlier on LBC. They were saying, maybe what we're heading towards is a sort of, low security, decrepit collapse of the prison and justice systems. And basically, we're headed for a Mad Max style Britain, is what they were saying. It's quite terrifying. And meanwhile, overseas, if we're looking for sanity over there, Joe Biden, he's toast. They are headed for a Donald Trump style America. So yeah, it's all looking pretty shit. It's a good, but mostly a bad week, actually, if we come to think of it. But fuck it. It's Friday night, it's booge, it's your dad's balls. Let's get into it once again. Let's pull up a bar stool, guys. People in the chat, people listening at home on Spotify and Apple, pour yourself a drink for your poor self as we once again try to make sense of the senseless and indeed light of the darkness. Right. What are people saying in the live chat? David Ford says, Tory and Labour get in there on Labour social aid and tell them there's always trillions for business and the rich in a trust fund that guarantees their profits, that guarantees we pay more and don't lose. Yes, this is about Thames Water and South East Water, right? Yeah, I talked about this on the Alternative Paper Review this morning. I was saying, the model that a lot of these companies set up, and it's not just water companies by a long shot, right? The model that they set up is you got Thames Water, and then you got its parent company. And then Thames Water funnel all of the profits off to the parent company under a licensing agreement. So they're like, we can trade under Thames Water or whatever. And then all the profits go up to the board of the parent company. Then the directors draw down their dividends because they've had an amazing year with all this profit coming in. Meanwhile, Thames Water don't make any money. So then they don't have to pay any tax. It's pretty disgusting. But also, Thames Water itself then is saddled with the debt. They take out these loans on behalf of Anyway, I could go off on a whole, hours rant about this stuff. Which is what I do, and then I call it a podcast. I put it out to you guys. Boom. I was thinking earlier, right? Just how doomed the world actually is now, I know on this show, right, we talk a lot about, how hopeless and devoid of a future we all are. It's a running theme, obviously. It's basically the USP of the podcast, isn't it? Of the live stream. It's me and sometimes other guests. And then we talk about the myriad of disappointments out there. But I was thinking, right, if you ever needed a cold, hard truth for just how broken and morally bankrupt the Western world currently is, right, all you have to do is consider the fact, and it is a fact, that we have just had a week in the news where one guy is getting prosecuted for planning to kidnap and rape Holly Willoughby. That's going on over here. Then meanwhile, over here, we've got another guy ran in a house and crossbowed two sisters and their mother. 3 women dead on the floor. It's been a big week for violent misogynists. And so you would think that it would garner a groundswell of public support and media coverage, wouldn't you? You'd think that would happen, you would think, in a sane world. Just national condemnation and a moment, maybe not the moment that everything changes, but a moment, at least. where people pause for thought and just for a minute they go, huh, okay, well, maybe I need to take a minute. And yet, none of that has happened, has it? It really hasn't. It's just been... It's been what? It's been... a bit like there's been a bit of talk about the crossbow murders, obviously, but it's been mostly rooted in like the idea of banning crossbows. In fact, it's worse than that, because not only is there an absence of condemnation and actually, talking about the problem itself, about the issue of how men treat women and girls, not only is there an absence of that, but here is a cold, hard fact for you if you want to lose all faith in Western society. If the crossbow guy came out with a catchy hip-hop tune, right, even now, it could go to number one. Like, I'm sorry to tell you that, but it actually could. That could happen. That is how low people's standards are. How little they give a shit. If the crossbow guy who ran in there and murdered 3 women, if he happened to have a Last.fm account or a YouTube with a bunch of like pre-uploaded hip-hop songs, and one of them was catchy, one of them was just like a bit of a club banger, it would go to number one. People just wouldn't give a shit. Like their conduct, the Holly Willoughby guy, the crossbow guy, their conduct, their crimes, or alleged crimes, they've been gross, they've been disgusting, they've been murderous, they've been sociopathic even. Kidnapping, plotting to do god-awful things, or taking a breakup so badly that you come back with a crossbow. But if they had this song pre-recorded, and if it was catchy, if that Kyle Clifford guy was a rapper and people started searching his name on Spotify, like, it sounds dystopian, doesn't it? But if enough people did it, feasibly, you would end up literally with violent misogyny at the top of the charts. That could happen. That is how doomed we are. And I'm not even talking, a lot of people will draw like parallels with, Eminem back in the day, right? But I'm not even talking about, that Eminem style thing where there's like, troubling lyrics and it creates disturbing imagery in your head, but it's like, it's exaggerated for shock factor. It's basically like an audio horror movie is how I always looked at his stuff. But I'm talking about a guy who has actually done some things, right? Where his song happens to be catchy and people hear it and then they go, well, I mean, it's a good tune, like that would happen. That could easily happen now. And do you know how I know that, guys? Do you know how I know that? This will turn your fucking stomach, right? Let me just see if I can dig this up quickly. Because also, in violent misogyny this week, this fucking pop mic thing is going to keep slapping me in the face, isn't it? What a cunt. There we go. There goes the monetization. Again. Let me see if I can find this thing. Wait. Why isn't it loading? Maybe I'll just tell you about it. Fuck it. But I don't know if you read about this. But basically, it's not unconnected to what I was just talking about, right? If somebody makes a song and it's catchy enough, people will forget the thing that they're accused of. There's a detachment to it. So I don't know if you saw this this story that came out, but this guy in Philadelphia, right? He's just waiting in the wings what they call like a dollar store, like a cheap store, right? And he runs out from one of these shop aisles, runs out. He's been waiting in the wings, just waiting for his moment or whatever. He runs out and he fucking busts a nut all over this woman's leg, right? I'm not making this up. I know when you hear this or you're watching now, you're thinking, oh, no, man, no, that couldn't. That's too far right. I'm being deadly serious. This was in US news this week. He's waiting in the wings. He runs out. He busts a nut. It goes all over this woman's leg. She goes crazy, obviously. The security guys sort of, kick in, start panicking, and everybody chases him. She chases him out the door. The guy runs off. No time for pillow talk, apparently. Okay, that's distasteful, Aid. And then if you didn't laugh, you'd cry, right? Like, you have to find the light in the darkness. That's what this show is about. Anyway, so then the CCTV footage of this attack, right, goes viral. And they get the picture of the guy who did this up on the news and all over Twitter. And the local police, the Philadelphia police, are like, yeah, this is a suspect. And anyway, they can't find him, but the footage goes around, and then this rapper, a guy called Meek Mill, he puts up a $2,000 reward, which is like fuck all, right? It's nothing, but it is enough to get information that leads to the arrest of this guy, right? And then it turns out that this guy who was hiding in a thing runs up, busts a nut all over this woman. They chase him out the store. They don't know who he is. $2,000 reward. Then it turns out, after they've found out who he is and he's been arrested and it turns out that he is also a rapper. And his name, guys, you still with me? His name is G Miles, right? And he's got a bunch of songs on the internet. Of course he does. And some of them are now getting played 250,000 times. 250,000 views. Quarter of a million plays, man. For this guy who runs out and commits a sexual assault on a woman in a dollar store, and then his songs on the internet getting shared, quote tweeted, and I do actually have one thing teed up here. This guy, right? This guy is one of the ones that's sharing him, and he says, "This is Joey Manarino on Twitter here. If you're listening to the audio version of this, he goes, this guy who was going viral for nutting on the leg of some woman in Philly. Just some woman. Just not important who or what she is. Forget about her dreams of being a rapper. Forget about her dreams of trying to sell, I don't know, like some fashion items. Like, we should be promoting her. What the fuck are we doing, Joey? But no, instead, this guy who is going viral for nutting. I love the way he says nutting like it's a new craze. You know? I mean, I did warn you at the beginning of this, like, if you want something to really remove your hope for Western society, here it is. But yeah, doesn't it sound like nutting is like the all-new craze? This guy who is going viral for nutting on the leg of some woman, just some lady, in Philly, is now said to be Gary Miles. He is also an aspiring rapper who goes by... My accent's messing up a bit. He is also an aspiring rapper who goes by G Miles. And here is one of his songs called Hypocrite. And he's actually not so bad. Maybe this will be his big break. Oh my God! Are you for real? Maybe this will be his big break? Like, know some of us are blessed, right? Or cursed. With the ability to, detach, is that the right word? To separate, that's probably the right way of saying it. Like, the art from the artist. I know that some of us are able to do that more so than others. Like I can watch an old Louis C.K. special. Do you know what I mean? I can sit there and watch an old Louis C.K. routine, and I can laugh at it. But I don't actively promote it. I'm not rooting for the sex pest. Like with Louis C.K. or Michael Jackson or whoever. I feel like you can listen to their old stuff. I've talked about this before on the pod. I feel like you can listen to their old stuff and you can enjoy it, right? Because part of it is remembering who you were when you first enjoyed those things. Like for me, Michael Jackson's Dangerous album is always going to be my first album that I bought, that I loved, I really got into it. The same, like Louis C.K., he was the first stand-up I saw where I was like, whoa, I want to do that. He makes it look good, I feel like you could listen to their old stuff. And then like the other half of it is like, it's a shame that all that stuff came out about this guy or that person because the guy was really talented. Like, that's the other half of it. Like it brings back memories listening to the stuff or watching the old routines. But then there's the other part of it where, you do look at it, you acknowledge it. You go like, it's a shame that they did that thing because they ruined it for themselves. Or, it's like that sort of thing. I'm sad that happened, right? But there's a difference between that and actively looking for the demo tapes of the sex criminal. Right? You know what I mean? Like, is this where we're at now? Like, do you remember when artists used to have to go to rehab when they fucked up, or they'd get cancelled for a bit, right? Like, nowadays, you don't even lose your career for being a wrong'un. You don't have to go to rehab. You're not getting cancelled. Nowadays, you can go, I'm sorry, who? To G Miles, to Gary Miles, Philadelphia rapper G Miles. I'm sorry, who's that? You could go from that to 250,000 plays in 3 days. Nowadays, the sex crime will be the reason you become successful, rather than the reason that you lose that success and fame and fortune. It's a PR technique now. And people wonder why I'm like, oh, it's fucked. It's over, We're done. Western liberal democracy is on the way out. Standards are through the barrel. My expectations are at Earth's crust level now. The only thing that still is a fantasy about dystopia is that it's at some point in the future. Like, dystopia is actually here. It's now. This is it. You're in it. With me. If you think it's still like 10 or 20 years away, ironically, actually you're sort of living in a futuristic utopia. Because that is a fantasy. Jesus. 250,000 plays. And maybe this will be his big break. It's insane. Having people dig out his demos and share them around, it is insane. People getting famous for jerking off in public, it's actually quite innovative. What? No, ain't. No, that is... No, you can't walk down Oxford Street with your dick out telling people to check out the podcast. What is wrong with you? It's too far. But yeah. Anyway, that was in Philadelphia. Moonfest Madness is in the chat saying the art died. Did it though? Because I'm always told, endlessly I'm told, that there are still amazing artists out there. And I got into an exchange with Sean from Drowned in Sound not so long ago, where we were talking about this whole, separate the art from the artist thing. And his take on it, which I totally understand and respect, but his take on it was that there are so many good artists coming up, so many talented singers, poets, bands. All you got to do is just invest a little bit of time in finding them and just flick on, I don't know, Six Music or something and just try to explore them rather than living in the past and regretting that these people did those things. You could replace them with new, exciting, up-and-coming artists. But I'm always like, but none of them are going to be that person. And you will never see another, and this is where I put my technology hat on, you will never see another Michael Jackson, Guns N' Roses, Nirvana ever again. And I don't even mean like those specific artists. Obviously, you will never see those come around again. I mean, it's impossible now for a new singer to ever reach the heights of a Michael Jackson. It's impossible for a new band to come up and gig the circuit the way that Guns N' Roses and Nirvana did, like back in the 80s and 90s, and then become and then sell that amount of CDs. There's just not that amount of money in it anymore. It's impossible for bands to build a following and to anyway. So I think he and I look at it very slightly differently. Why is there so much talk about badgers in the chat? Where does all the badger talk come from? How did this start? We're trying to have a serious conversation here about people running out of the shopping aisle and jerking off over women. This is a conversation that needs to be had. You lot are talking about badgers. Anyway, that was happening in Philadelphia. Meanwhile, over in Texas, guys, Texas is having very serious energy problems. I don't know if you're familiar with this. I don't know why we're spending so much time talking about the US this time. It's like a little whistle-stop tour, isn't it, of shit American states. I mean, think of this as a little, commercial break, I guess, for American listeners, isn't it? It's me trying to lure in American listeners, trying to promote the podcast to Texans and Philadelphians. I'm trying to promote it to Americans because you lot won't let me promote the podcast by walking around jerking my dick off. What? No! Stop now, Wade. So, Texas. Let's try and be serious for a minute. Texas is having an energy supply problem, and it is sort of the result of Hurricane Beryl, which hit the state earlier this week. Don't know if you're familiar with this. But yeah, Hurricane Beryl hit Texas. I think it was Monday or Tuesday. We didn't really hear about it much over here because I think we were too busy, waving our flags around with the football and, obsessing over how much Labour has achieved in their first few days in office. And because, mostly because it's your thing. It's your thing, Americans, okay? Over there. We have enough of our own dramas and problems and challenges and ridiculousness over here, frankly. Water is about to explode in cost. We've covered that. Food is still double the price that it was like 3 years ago. Everybody's mortgages are basically now... What is a mortgage? It's a delusion of home ownership is what it is. It's the delusion of home ownership sold as a subscription service. It's like, how much would you like to pay every month? Oh, £1,500. Oh, wicked. Okay. And you want to own the house too? Yeah. Do I get to own it for that? No. No, you don't. How long do you want to pay that for? 42 years? No shit. Okay. How old are you now? I'm 42 years up. Right. So you're going to be in debt your entire life. You will never own this property. It will always be the banks. But you want the delusion, the fantasy of home ownership. Yeah, sure. Here's your subscription. $1,500 a month. You fucking moron. For you to feel Like you could have owned it. Enjoy the fantasy aid. Any others that you'd like to throw in there with it while we're talking about fantasies? Maybe Mia Kunis and the woman from your train home the other night could be over here whispering about all of your better attributes, like it's a fucking ASMR channel. Anyway, we have our own problems, Texas. Texan listeners. Anyway, let's talk about their problems, shall we? So Texas get this hurricane. And it knocks out the power. And 3 million people in Texas are then without power, right? And then they get this, right? This sounds like some sort of biblical news story, like from 2,000 years ago, doesn't it? 186 tornado warnings. 186! In God's country, Texas. Like, what did you do to piss off God? What did you do to get a plague of tornadoes? You loony motherfuckers. So 3 million people without power, 186 tornadoes, and the temperature there. The temperature do you know when it gets like 30 degrees here and we're just like, this is too hot now, isn't it? 48 degrees Celsius. In Texas, and the tornadoes, and no power. 48 degrees. And so there's old folks in houses in Texas that are just cooking. Just roasting hot. Incredibly dangerous for the oldies. And because, their aircon units are all switched off, obviously. And the fridge won't keep their water cold. And all the food is rotten. And so obviously, it's an emergency, right? And so their governor, a guy called Greg Abbott, what do you think he's doing? Where do we think he is at the moment? Live chat. Do we think he's in Midland, Texas? Do we think he's in Austin? Do we think he's in some of the burbs, checking that everyone's got power, and if they don't have power? Like, where do you think Greg Abbott is? He's in Taiwan! Is where Greg Abbott is. Their governor, Greg Abbott, is off gallivanting around the world, shaking hands and making plans, guys. While your fucking grandma looks like she's the fucking 2024 self-immolation champion. She just... Your sister looks like fucking Sarah Connor engulfed in fire in the T2 nightmare scene. Your kid walks outside and sees 2 pigeons just burst into flames. It's hot. There's no power. There's tornadoes. 48 degrees. And Governor Greg Abbott is like, you know what? It might be a good time to fuck off for a bit. Like, what's the weather like in Taiwan? Oh, it's 29 today and rain tomorrow. Greg, oh, sweet Mary, baby Jesus and Joseph. Thank you for this precious gift. All right, you go get the luggage. And this isn't a new thing for Texas, by the way. Because Ted Cruz is their senator. Senator Ted Cruz, who you might remember, he railed against Donald Trump in the primaries. This was 5 years ago it would have been now. He railed against Donald Trump. He called him a crook. He said he wasn't fit to be president. He said that his conduct was unbecoming. He threw a load of actually quite accurate. It's rare for Republican senators and conservative faces to rightly label Donald Trump thing. But this is before they all became cowards. So he labeled Donald Trump a load of stuff, and then Donald Trump called Ted Cruz's wife ugly. And then Ted Cruz, you're not going to believe this, he was so mad that he turned around and supported Donald Trump. Yeah, how about that shit? He calls your wife ugly, and you say, let's think we'll move on. Yeah, I would vote for Trump, absolutely. So that's Ted Cruz. So he's their senator, right? So Greg Abbott fucks off to Taiwan, and Ted Cruz has also done similar, right? But this is a few years back. In 2021, you might remember this, they had a winter disaster this time. All the power went out, loads of people without power, loads of people struggling, food rotting. Don't know what the temperature was like. Don't know if there was tornadoes. Maybe they hadn't pissed off God that much by that point. But it was a winter disaster, everyone without power, and Ted Cruz grabbed his passport and flew off to Cancun. Just left them like he was Rishi Sunak on the beaches. He just fucked off right out of there. And people stopped him at the airport. They were like, "Where the fuck are you going?" And he's like, "Well, I prayed for you. If anyone could help you, then it's the Lord Jesus Christ. And frankly, I think it'd be downright blasphemous if I was to stand on the Lord's toes. So, but you're the fucking senator, Ted. Like, can't you stay here and help people? You know, people could fucking die, Ted. Well, I'm not in the business of trying to outperform God, and I have already prayed to God. So, I've got a baby coming, Ted. My wife is pregnant. Right, but my plane is leaving, so if you'll excuse me." Ted Cruz just saunters on by with his Hawaiian shirt and his shades on, flanked by college girls. Like, yeah! Spring break! Woo! And it's so darkly funny, right? The reason that I raise this on this show is because, that's what we try. We try to find the funny in the darkness, don't we? And how is this funny, Aid? Well, I'm going to tell you. Because for so many people, they see Texas as the home of freedom, don't they? They see it as pure Americana. It's apple pie America. Welcome to Texas, home of freedom, home of liberty. In fact, I think Ted Cruz himself, right? This is going back a few years now, obviously. But when Joe Rogan, famous podcaster, comedian, WW something commentator, when he moved very outspokenly from Los Angeles down to Texas, because LA were looking at taxing him at the higher rate, and he just signed his Spotify deal, he was like, "Well, fuck you. I want the money." So he went down to Texas, where it's like no tax, basically. And Ted Cruz tweeted Joe Rogan, who was like, "Welcome to Texas, Joe, where we will protect your freedom." So everyone talks about Texas like it's the home of freedom, the home of liberty, America. This is what America is all about, right? And whenever there's some stupid news story, right, about, trans rights, drag queens, child sexualization, all of that stuff, it is always some moron from Texas who, will ignore Trump's rape trial and all of the Russell Brand allegations. They're still tuning in to Rumble every Thursday and Saturday night or whatever he's on. But they think a drag queen reading a story to a kid that they never bothered to read stories to is like, that's the problem. Child sexualization. We got to re-elect Greg Abbott. We got to re-elect Ted Cruz, send him back to the Senate. Because he gonna keep the Muslims out. He gonna keep the gay lobby out of Texas, son. Meanwhile, people with brains are like, right, but don't you think gay people and trans people, they deserve some representation? Rights at the state level? Don't they? Oh, absolutely. But this is an abomination. They're trying to sexualize my child. And then you look over at this guy's fat, ugly, toothless kid. Dribbling Cheetos all down his Hulk Hogan t-shirt. You're like, are you sure? Vote Ted Cruz, because he gonna protect your freedom. He gonna protect you from the trans, communist, Marxist thugs. And then a disaster happens like this. It's like, yeah, could we get some help with the energy back on? It's fucking roasting. I don't know why you're asking me. Well, like, what's this got to do with me? Well, you're the senator. You're the governor. It's too hot. Right, but is it too gay? No, it's fucking 50 degrees outside. People are dying. Right, okay, well, if it gets too gay, then call 911. But otherwise, we'll be back in a couple of weeks. Okay, bye now. And here's the kicker, right? Here's the kicker. I was looking this up the other day. It's not just that they're callous and uncaring and they leave these people to fend for themselves when they're in a situation of disaster where they really need some fucking help. It's not that. That's worth talking about. That's disgusting. But it's not just that. It's the right-wing corruption layer to it as well. I looked this up the other day, right? They even passed a law. The Republicans passed a law last Christmas. Like literally at Christmas time. When everybody else is like, how can I help my fellow man? What gift should I buy for this person? How can I show them that I care about them? When everybody else is getting in the Christmas spirit, thinking about how they could help people, how they could be a better person. This lot passed a law that said, if there's a disaster and if the power lines come down and you're paying $500 a month and then your gran or your grandpa might die if you don't get electricity. The power companies, thanks to this bill, will now bear no responsibility whatsoever. They don't have to provide power to you. They don't have to lift a fucking finger. Like, it's all fun and games when you vote in these conservatives and they're like, protect me from the woke. You got to protect me from the woke, the LGBT lobby. Until some real shit happens. And then it's like, oh, hang on a goddamn minute. You mean they sided with the big business donors? I do not believe that they put money before my welfare. Now I tell you what, do I feel foolish? I got AC to cool me down, but it's off. It's not working. I got no ice. I'm all out of water. I'm roasting. There's 5 tornadoes outside my front porch right now. But let me tell you, son, I'm so desperate for a drink. I am so parched that I am this close to running out to that there dollar store and jerking that motherfucker's dick just so I can feel a bead of moisture on my tongue. Let me tell you, son, get me to the dollar store. Dude in the dollar store's dick is like some sort of weird, peachy, refreshing slush puppet that we're all just desperate enough to drink from. Right. God, that was an effort to get that out. I could feel my diaphragm going. Maybe I need to start doing like vocal warm-ups before I do these live shows. Let's go back to the live chat. And then I'll let you guys go. Billy Kershaw says, okay, Tom, I was generalizing. Tom says, relief. I'm not sure what that's in relation to. One angry pagan. I don't want to go to America. I don't like the cities, but I likely wouldn't be welcome in the rural and wild areas. I always feel like if I went to the rural areas, I'd probably be more welcome. Because my teeth are kind of fucked. And I always imagine like I would fit like toothless kind of hickey, gummy Joe kind of characters like from The Simpsons. I look like more of a hick than I look like a handsome city slicker. Also, I feel like, is there like a small town sort of vibe? There's a romance to it, isn't there? I feel like if you went to like, Westchesterville in New Hampshire, somewhere like that, you'd walk into a bar and people would be like, oh my God, you're British? Do you know the Queen? Do you know? Yeah, well, probably not the Queen. I hope they do still ask that. Because it'd be really fun to fuck with them. Like, do you know the Queen? She's dead, okay? She's fucking dead. And yes, I did know her. And you've just brought it all back, so thanks a lot. Joe Lefty says, I'm not welcome in the US. Well, you're in good company, Joe. Partly because you're literally in good company here. But Graham Hughes, who runs Politics Social, is also banned from the United States, though I can't remember exactly why. If Wayne is still in the chat, maybe he'll remember. Or Bowler Hatman might remember also. I mean, all of us should remember, because Graham's basically got about 5 stories that he revolves around. And he just does the 5 stories from 5 different countries, from like 5 cities within those countries. And basically, if he rotates them enough, it convinces all of us that he's been around the world, you know, and he's, you know, that's his scam. He's really clever with that stuff. Dungarees and a shotgun and you'd fit right in, says Billy. Yeah. I reckon I could rock dungarees and a shotgun. I could do you know what? Even if I didn't fit in like, you know, a little hick town, or in the, like, I reckon my accent, my American accent is just about passable, I reckon. Although this is normally the point when I get cocky and I think my American accent is all right. And then an actual American is in the chat and he's just like, oh, fuck no. No, that is awful. I don't know what. Terrible. 2-penny Amdram troop you're a part of, but you need to stop listening to their encouragement. Focus on what you're actually good at. Stick to the ranting. I used to know a guy, actually, just quickly. I used to know a guy, a British guy, who went over to the US, and he was traveling, and he went to, what's the name of that? Is this the way to Amarillo, right? And he went there just to see the place, just to say that he had been to the place in the song, and just through complete bad luck, he happened to be in a bar that night where 2 hicks, I guess they would have been, pulled out guns and started shooting each other, and he got fucking shot and died in an American small town bar in Amarillo. I was like, fucking hell. Like, how unlucky. Like, what are the chances of that? That the one time that you go to the US and you pick out that one place that's quite abstract. Like, I don't know anyone else that's bothered to go to Amarillo, right? And that one night you're stood at that one bit in the bar, and that it's 2 guys with a gun, and it just happens to ricochet off, and you die. It's fucking tragic, man. Diana Patterson says, if your American accent is off, claim to be Canadian. That's just not to a Canadian. Yeah, I should do. That's a good get out, isn't it? Or you could just say, I spent time in the States, and that's why I've got this accent, you know? Or you could just say, I'm really fucking impressionable. That would be a good one. Like, you've been talking to them for like 30 seconds, and you're trying to convince them that you've just developed an accent because they're so cool and you're so needy and impressionable that immediately... Anyway, making myself laugh now. So, right, that's it, guys. I'm going to have to go. Make sure you go over to Politics Social. Graham will be streaming at 9 o'clock. My missus has been texting me while I'm live streaming, and that usually means that one of my children is kicking off in there, so I better go in and check they're all right. I'll jump in the Discord now with my my Patreons. If you are a Patreon and you've not joined the Discord yet, you're very welcome. Come aboard, DM me, I'll give you the link. If you're not on the Patreon or the YouTube community yet, now is your chance. I usually put a link to both in the description for all of the alternative paper reviews and all of the episodes of the pod. So jump on there. It starts at like £3 a month. I will just... Did I do the Patreon list earlier? Don't know if I did. Here we go. I've added a couple of new names there. Christine Cash went up from the £3 to the £5 month tier, so she gets onto the list, the naming and shaming crediting list here. Got a couple of other newbies on there too. Jonathan Danishuk, who messaged me the other day to say that I did pronounce it properly. I hope I did that time, or I would have started strong and then deteriorated. Danishuk. Jonathan Danishuk. Margaret Abagai. Mike Baker's pretty new as well, I think. Distract, I met you last week. Dickie Bow. Anyway, look, we could talk about Patreon stuff all night, couldn't we? But now I must go. I must go and check on my children. Until next time, keep it booge, keep it Bimfluencer, and I am out this mother.